2030. Earth is a frozen wasteland and humanity is nearly extinct. What if all of society was crammed onto a single train?
This frightening, surreal, and funny thriller covers many different topics and never fails to thrill and excite us along the way. Welcome to our channel. Today we'll recap and review the events of this sci-fi action movie, Snowpiercer. Let's get right into it.
In the beginning of the movie, there are various news reports reporting the effects of global warming reaching unstoppable levels. Many countries are planning to release a chemical, CW7, high into the atmosphere, which should help lower global temperatures. CW7 did not work though. Instead, it froze the planet in a terrifying extinction event. 17 years later, humanity's final survivors find shelter on a giant train, the Ark. The inhabitants of the train are messy and dirty. A group of armed guards enter their carriage and demand they kneel to be counted. Curtis refuses to kneel despite his friend Edgar's pleas. Shortly, he kneels and explains he was counting how many guards he could see in the carriages beyond. They all queue and collect their rations while a guard calls for any passengers who can play the violin. An old couple comes forward. The man Gerald says they both used to play for the Boston Orchestra, though when the guard says only he may come, he refuses. The guard retaliates and hits his wife in the head with his rifle before he's taken away.
He calls to her that he'll come back, but we get the distinct impression that he's lying to himself and to her.
Curtis tries to trade his protein block ration with Tanya's son Tim, but he refuses and runs off, saying that he'll only trade the block if he gets to play with the ball for a whole hour. Curtis smiles and gives in, telling Tanya that it's nearly time. Curtis slices open his new protein block and finds a tiny note in it. An older passenger, Gilliam, reads it. It says Nam King Soon, the name of a security expert currently held captive in the prison section of the train. Curtis breaks down his escape plan. There are 3 gates between them and the prison section, with only 4 seconds to get through them once they open. Then he could help take them to the front of the train. The key to a successful takeover of the train for those at the front is by taking over the engine. Curtis says this is why all previous revolutions failed. The guards wake everyone that night, demanding all the children for a medical inspection, and we meet our first inhabitant of the front of the train. Unlike the rest of the passengers, she is clean and well dressed. She inspects Tanya and finds Tim hidden under her coat. He is taken away along with one other child. The other child's father, Andrew, fights back, hitting the passenger from the front in the head and drawing blood. As punishment, a hatch is opened in the train wall and his arm is locked in, exposed to the frozen temperatures outside the train. We meet the leader of the front of the train, Mason.
Despite the frightening position she portrays, she played with a strange, unnerving sense of comedy.
She delivers a speech that demands order from the freeloaders at the back while Andrew endures his torture. Andrew's frozen arm is brought in from the cold and smashed with a giant, vicious hammer as Gilliam enters. Removing his cloak, we see he also has a missing arm and has suffered this brutal punishment. Curtis gets the idea into his head that something that Mason said about the guards' useless guns means that they have no bullets left after the last revolution. The passengers assemble a giant battering ram, but the guards make an unexpected return. Rushing to the front of the column, Curtis takes a guard's rifle, points it at his head, and pulls the trigger. Click. They've got no bullets. The passengers pick up the ram and chase the guards. They disarm them and gain access to the prison section, retrieving Nam King Soon from his prison locker, although he says his name is Nam Gung Minsu. He's a drug addict addicted to a substance called chronol that they use to wake him and bribe him to help them reach the front of the train. King Soon agrees, but only if they bring his daughter, Yona, and if they give him 2 blocks of chronol per door. They reach an agreement, and King Soon picks the lock of the next gate, leading the passengers to an empty carriage full of empty beds. The shutters of the carriage open, and we see the outside world for the first time. Still a frozen wasteland, a city covered in ice and snow. In the next carriage, we meet Paul, an engineer who seems to have lost his mind.
Paul's comedic, over-the-top performance adds to the overall slightly comedic angle, giving a constant surreal edge to the situation everyone's trapped in.
Looking inside one of Paul's tank, he sees hundreds of thousands of cockroaches being shredded up to form the protein blocks that the passengers are made to eat every day. Curtis finds another note like the one from his block on Paul. It simply reads, water. Gillian thinks that it means they simply need to take the water supply station, giving them a bargaining chip that could give them control over the train. Yona seems to have a sixth sense for knowing what's hidden behind each gate, and as Nam Gungs opens the next one, she gets a bad feeling and shouts for him not to, but it's too late. The gate opens on an army of axe and spear-wielding figures, clad head to toe in black.
The slow reveal of this faceless army, accompanied by the ominous rhythmic drums, is a truly gut-wrenching, stomach-sinking moment.
The two sides stand off for what seems like forever before they both engage. What follows is a deadly battle.
A beautiful, slow-motion shot shows Curtis battling with a stolen axe. The violence is almost like a brutal dance, and in moments like this, we see director Bong Joon-ho show why he's such a talent.
An announcement rings out. The train is passing over a bridge that now symbolizes their new year. The guards chant Happy New Year, and this surreal moment brings a sudden end to the combat. The train speeds along the precarious bridge high in the air, and the battle stops while it crashes through massive ice blocks that have built up over the years. Mason appears, furious, and gets dressed in military clothing. She announces that for this attempted revolution, 74% of them will die. She's excited as she raises a pair of binoculars. The guards begin to put on night vision goggles, and the train enters a tunnel, plunging the carriage into darkness. The massacre of the blinded passengers unfolds under eerie night vision, and all hope seems lost. Curtis calls for fire, and from far at the back of the train, the passengers rally carrying flaming torches and leveling the battlefield once again.
We're once again treated to a beautiful display of slow-motion brutality, dimly lit by firelight.
Looking around, Curtis sees Mason being dragged to safety, but also Edgar held at knife point. He has to make a judgment call. He seizes the moment and runs for Mason. Edgar bravely attempts to escape, but receives a knife in the back instead. Curtis holds Mason, a knife to her throat. She calls for them all to stop fighting, and we see the aftermath of the violence in the cold daylight. Gilliam commands everyone to wash the blood away in the water supply section. Mason is interrogated by the passengers. She's hysterical, who says she knows nothing about the missing children, that they'll all go to Wilford, the man who runs the engine. She says that she'll guarantee them safe passage to him. Curtis leads a small band of passengers accompanied by Mason, and they find themselves in a greenhouse carriage, a strange, beautiful environment full of fresh fruit and vegetables with harp music playing. Next, they are in a carriage with an aquarium-like walkthrough area surrounded by fish on all sides. Next, they find themselves in a bright, beautiful classroom full of unruly children. Tanya asks if they've seen Tim and Andrew's child. They say that they've been brought through the carriage but were taken to the front. Teacher plays a video explaining the history of Wilford's amazing train that is now the prison that the survivors inhabit. The teacher continues her excited lesson to the children and announces that tonight they have a special guest performance, Gerald. As he plays, a delivery of eggs is brought from Wilford. Once the delivery reaches the back, the man pushing the cart pulls a machine gun from the eggs and fires openly at the passengers. At the same moment, the teacher pulls a gun out and shoots the passengers in the classroom before being quickly dispatched by a throwing knife. On the class TV, we see Gilliam executed on his knees. Curtis picks up teacher's gun, and before Mason can stop him, he shoots her in the head and continues leading his troops deeper into the train. They pass through strange scenes of luxury, passengers having suits tailored or enjoying dental treatment and having their hair done. The survivors are pursued by Franco, a brutal machine gun-wielding enforcer. In a sauna carriage, a steamy, desperate fight ensues. Franco seems to have Curtis beat before Namgung appears and suffocates Franco with a crowbar. In the chaos, Tanya was shot and she dies, making Curtis promise to save Tim. The next carriage is a nightclub, followed by a room full of passengers addicted to Cronol, finally finding themselves at the door to the engine room. Curtis loses his temper and starts attacking the gate before Namgung calls him and offers him a final cigarette. Lighting the world's last cigarette, Curtis talks about the history of the end of the train, how they were forced to eat fellow passengers after a month with no food, and how he's haunted by the taste of humans. He tells a story about a man who killed a mother and was going to eat her baby, but was stopped by a fellow passenger who took the baby from the man and cut off his own arm, suggesting that he eat that instead. To his shame, he reveals that he was the man who stole the baby. That baby was Edgar.
We now realize why Curtis has so much hate for Wilford, what the conditions of the train drove him to become.
Namgung is moved by Curtis's story but refuses to open the door still. He says he wants to open another door, the door to the outside world. He believes the snow in the world outside is thawing and that now is a time to escape. He reveals that he has been storing Cronol, an explosive substance, to create a bomb that can blow the door and open their path to the outside. Before he could spark his bomb, Claude, who first took the children, opens the gate to the engine room and shoots Namgung, extending an invitation to Curtis for a steak dinner with Wilford. Wilford dwells in a strange, empty carriage and is preparing steak for dinner. He explains that he and Gilliam secretly planned the whole revolution in order to clear out space for those in the back. When the revolution caused too much harm to the front of the carriage, Gilliam had to be killed. Wilford calls the back of the train and commands the guards to execute 74% of the remaining passengers. Meanwhile, in the sauna carriage, Franco, who we thought was dead, wakes up and pulls the knife from his belly. The clubbers have also arrived outside the engine room and are planning to kill Namgung and Yona. Wilford tells Curtis that he's the one who has been sending all the notes back to engineer the revolution. Yona finally cracks the gate to the engine room and runs in, begging Curtis for a match. But Wilford's speech has convinced Curtis that maybe the order on the train is unavoidable. Yona pulls up a floorboard and reveals Tim hidden beneath, trapped in cramped conditions in the cogs of the engine, condemned to work on the engine. Curtis, seeing Tim trapped in these conditions, snaps out of it. Punching Wilford, he plunges his arms into the cogs and sacrifices it to try and save him after giving Yona the matches. Yona rushes to spark the chronol and a massive explosion follows, blowing open the train and triggering a giant avalanche on the mountainside. The unstoppable snow tumbles down the mountain and knocks the ark off its tracks, stopping the train once and for all. Yona and Tim wake up in the wreckage and find their first steps outside, wrapped up tight in thick furs. They seem to be the only ones left alive. Looking into the distance, they spot a lone polar bear on the mountainside.
Snowpiercer is a wonderful film that shows how director Bong Joon-ho would perform at the level that would earn him an Oscar in 2019. The narrative is as unstoppable and powerful as the arc itself. Every aspect of this film has been created with love and care. Every inch, from the performances, the motivations of the characters, the thrilling action set pieces, and clever social analogies, all thread together beautifully to create a truly unique science fiction thriller film. This is a rare action film that has no weak links in its carriages, a flawless picture you can enjoy time and time again. Please subscribe to our channel to be notified when we upload. Also, don't forget to suggest movies that you want us to recap in the future in the comments down below.